oh, yes, it's on, I think. Is this too high here? Should I move it down? Okay. Thank you very much for invitations to your homes. We've already been in 2 homes this week. And today we stayed in, and I was working on a project for our PEP ministry. A printer overseas, a mission printer, is waiting to receive the French version of a course that is going to be taught there in January, and he has to fit it in among other jobs, and so he wants to have it by the end of this month. And so I had to scramble because I had intended to get some corrections done on that copy in French before the end of the year. But now he wants it a month earlier, so I really pushed on that today, and then we have an invitation for tomorrow. So we're really appreciating the time with your people. All right, I'm going to make a point as we're on the top of page 6 here. Page 6, and you folks don't have a copy. Let's make sure everybody gets a copy. And perhaps 1 copy for the 2 of you would be sufficient, and pass 1 on down there.
Thank you.
And do you want to follow along too, you girls?
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on page 6, near the top of the page. I want to make a point here before we move into the material. I'm going to say something tonight that I'm going to repeat several times through my teaching of these few pages while we're here. If you are responsible as a steward for everything that God entrusts into your hands, your testimony, your temple, talking about your body, your time, your talent, and your treasure, those 5 T's, if you're going to manage what God has given to you in a proper way, then you're going to have to learn that you can't always say yes. You're going to have to learn when to say no. There are times, it's true, in any kind of work that you're going to be forced to do some things that, in fact, aren't necessarily fun, but they're part of the job. Even as a missionary in Africa, I loved being a missionary in Africa. But there are parts of our work out there that weren't fun. But you force yourself to do the right things, the things you need to do, and then you also have to learn the opposite side of the picture, where you're going to have to learn to say no. You can't always agree with what others want you to do. You can't always even agree with yourself what you would want to do. Because sometimes you're going to be tempted to do the wrong thing. And that's where you get in trouble with your life testimony in front of people. Because you yield to temptations so easily. It's natural for us. We want to do what we want to do. But no, a good Christian, a person who realizes that he's responsible to manage things in a way that will please God, you're going to have to say no to yourself sometimes. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to ruin your testimony. Now, in every other subject area, too, if we're talking about time, there are times when you're going to force yourself to do what you are supposed to do, even though you'd rather spend your time doing something else. If you're committed to the work of the church, you're going to give your time to do certain things that you've been asked to do, or that you know you could help by doing. So you have to learn to discipline yourself, to say yes at the right times, and to say no when you know this is something you should not be doing. In your use of your funding, How many people are in terrible debt today because they've never learned to say no to themselves? So they want something, and they'll just pull out that credit card. It's such easy money, But then somewhere down the line, you're going to be in trouble financially because you haven't learned to discipline yourself and be careful with your choices. Saying yes sometimes, but saying no sometimes too. Now, this is something that young people have to learn. And the earlier you learn these lessons, the better off you're going to be. When you learn to discipline yourself when you're young, then you get into college and you learn to push yourself to do your study. You're serious about why you're there. But you're not just going to waste your time or fritter away your time, and you're not going to just waste your money. Because the more you waste your money now, the more problems financially you're going to have later on, because you're going to keep going with these same habits. And we have to learn that there are times when a good manager will say no. All right, we're up 2/3 of the way up the page, so about 1/3 of the way down on page 6, we must guard against. Now, we're going to start again moving around the room, and I'm going to ask Sally if you would start over here with 1 Peter 5:8, and then Jeff, if you have James 1:13-15, and then Hebrews 12:1 for Karen, please. Then I'm going to ask Karen, would you be ready then when it's time for it, for Luke 14:34 and 35, just those two. We have lots of other scriptures listed, but we can't take time to read them all. All right, 1 Peter 5:8. We're talking about guarding our reputations so that we will not lose our opportunity to influence people positively for the Lord. We must guard against certain things. 1 Peter 5:8.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour.
So I suggest to you we must guard against every attack of Satan. Now, Satan isn't responsible for all of our sinning, but he is out to get you to sin. He wants you to ruin your reputation. He wants to destroy your influence for Christ. And he will take every opportunity to bring you down. And he wants to make you miserable. He wants to ruin your life. He wants to destroy you. So we must guard against every attack of Satan. James 1:13-15.
15?
Yes, please.
Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust has conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death.
Yes. So what would the key word be to fill in the blank here? Every sinful what? Temptation. Yeah, it's very simple, clear in those verses. We have to guard against those temptations. When Satan is trying to attack us, we have to say no to him, and I'm not going to listen to you. Now, he'll still keep nagging at you. He'll keep working on you, but you just have to stand firm against his attack. You have to stand up against those sinful temptations and just say, no, I'm not going to let myself do that. And then Hebrews 12:1.
Wherefore, seeing we also are encompassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily doth beset us.
Thank you. Now, there are two things in this verse, and some people think that they're equal. That is, two things that are being talked about, or it's the same thing that's being talked about two ways. I don't think so. I think it's two separate kinds of temptations here, two separate attacks on you. There are things that hinder you. They're just not necessary. They're weighing you down. They're slowing you down. They're making it harder for you to move forward aggressively for the Lord. What are those kinds of things? I don't know what the things are that are weights to you. Now, the reason I say this is different because it says every weight and the sin which so easily besets you. So I'm saying that these weights may not necessarily be sinful things. They may be good things, but you just have too many things in your life that are distracting you. And sometimes you're going to have to say no to some of those good things because it's just too much for you to handle and still be able to give priority to God in your life. So there are some weights that we may need to choose to put aside, even though those things may not necessarily be sinful in and of themselves. Practical guidelines. The Bible has a lot to say about guarding our testimonies. Karen, would you read verses 34 and 35 of Luke 14?